Welcome to Convos of Cunningham. I'm clearly not Jeff Cunningham, but I'm Blake Showalter, filling in for Jeff today because he is sick. I'm here with Mayor Stacy. How you doing?
Very good. Thanks for inviting me here.
Oh, absolutely. We're glad to have you. I know it's probably a crazy time right now. Just tell me,
Indeed.
How are you doing? How's the campaign trail been, and coming up on Election Day?
It's been good. It's been pretty intense for a few months now, but the week before election is always super exciting. I have been getting out and trying to knock on doors and just talk to people that way. Of course, there's a lot of other communication going on, but really also just trying to remind people to vote. There's a big election, a local election on April 7th, and that's an important thing we need to pay attention to.
And how has going door to door been going? Been meeting some good people?
It's been enjoyable. Yes, of course. I mean, Cape's great. It's been good. I always enjoy having conversations, even when people say, "Hey, tell me about this," and they're looking at me like, I'm not sure I'm voting for you. But those conversations are really good. It's fun to get to explain some things and dig into some things with people. And certainly anytime anyone has a question and they're engaged, that's good to know.
And that kind of gets me into one of my first questions. Talking to those people, what is the number one thing you're hearing from voters?
It's honestly what I've always heard from our community since I've been on the city council, and that is public safety issues. Cape is not the same community that it was 30, 40 years ago. That was what I clearly heard 4 years ago when I was first running for mayor. And so people want to know what's going on here, how is the city responding, specifically what's going on in our police department, how can we support our police department, and what things do they want to be doing that will bring a better law enforcement situation here, those kinds of things. There are some gun violence issues that have increased, like I said, over the decades, and that is chief concern of people.
And about those concerns, moving forward, if you were to be reelected, do you see any avenues or opportunities to help solve some of those problems?
Oh, absolutely. That was the focus of the gun violence task force that we engaged in 2 years ago. The purpose of bringing that task force together was to really get all the stakeholders involved in that conversation. And from that, we really latched on to several key points. Really learned a lot about particularly the juvenile situation here in Cape. We are seeing younger and younger people engaged in gun violence. Also heard a lot from the police department about all the things they are doing, all the things they want to do. And really there was a lot of community support for that. But also we got into talking about not just the law enforcement side of things, but what does the prevention side of things look like? And there, that extends into, community organizations, working directly with individuals, with families. That's actually a tougher nut to crack. But the city, and the question was always, what can the city be engaged in? Certainly our police department is a big piece of that.
Absolutely, I agree with you there. And kind of moving back, we're going to talk about your campaign and also the future if you were to be reelected. But I want to go back a little bit to your previous term that's coming to an end here, obviously going for reelection. But what is the number one thing, maybe it is the task force, that you are most proud of during your time?
I really think one of the things I'm most proud of has been the absolute focus and priority of our city government in improving salaries in our various city departments. When I became mayor 4 years ago, that was the overwhelming largest problem in our city government. And I can talk specifically about our public safety forces, our police department and our fire department. But it was really extended across all of our departments. We did a deep dive 4 years ago looking into what is the state of the salaries for our police and fire departments. Because what we knew was that we had huge recruitment and retention problems, especially in those departments. And so we looked at it, we found out that those are our public safety forces, their salaries were among the lowest in the state. And so what we have done with our city budget has focused on raising those salaries. In our police department, in the past 4 years, we have raised the average starting salary across all ranks 41%. We have raised the average starting salaries across all ranks in our fire department by 43%. And so we've also done that while bringing down the city debt. We have, in the past 5 years, we've brought the city debt down $50 million. So those two things combined has had a profound impact on the city budget and the city's ability to engage in public safety. We have, because of that, we have filled most of our empty spots. When I first became mayor, there were 22 openings out of 80 in our police officer ranks, and we're now down to 0. We have 0 openings right now. We have I believe two firefighter positions open out of the whole department. So that's been something we've really focused on and we're very proud of, and we want to keep improving on those things.
Yeah, gotcha. And we're going to talk more about the firefighter contract later on as well, more about the firefighters and police department, stuff of that sort. But I want to focus, we talked about it in our previous interview that we did a couple weeks back, infrastructure. What do you think the biggest needs? You had the water, stuff going on as well. That was a huge win. But talking more into infrastructure, maybe there is more to be done with the water, potholes. That's a huge issue that we hear all the time from people within the city. What is your biggest focus looking forward if you were to be reelected for the infrastructure of the city?
Well, I'll just add, also with the low positions filled in our public safety forces, our public works department had a lot of openings too. And so improving the salaries there has really had a great impact on the amount of street repair we get to do annually now. So that's number one. Number two, I would say, the community, we had a year-long discussion about our water infrastructure issues last year. Had a big vote that ultimately we decided to raise our own water rates to pay for the massive infrastructure needs. That issue is by no means over. It is just starting. And so what we did last year was complete phase 1 out of what we call 3 phases of water infrastructure repair. Phase 2, though, is what we're entering now, and that's going to take, we know, 10 years and $100 million to complete. So we're going to be going in and repairing or replacing the largest, highest priority water mains, the problems there. We're going to be adding a 4th clarifier to our water plant, which will increase the capacity of clean water we're able to produce. There's some pumper stations, booster stations that need overhaul and repair. Those are the high priority issues that we're going to get going on. But just like with the Transportation Trust Fund tax that we've had here a long time, this water infrastructure issue is a pay-as-you-go kind of deal. So, when people ask in the past month or two, hey, why are we having problems with our water? Well, we're just getting started. And if we don't keep a really strong focus on the plan that we laid out and the progress that we need to, make over the next 10 years, we're not going to accomplish what we need to accomplish there. So I would say, as far as the next 4 years that I plan to serve as mayor, that's going to continue to be a giant focus of the infrastructure needs we have here.
And speaking of that 3-phase plan, you say it would take 10 years. Are you at all worried that if you aren't reelected that those 3 phases wouldn't come to a completion?
Well, my opponent has suggested that once we're done with the water needs, then we need to somehow divert that money to street repair. First of all, that's illegal. We can't do that. The money the revenue that is collected for water infrastructure cannot be used for anything else. It's only for water infrastructure. But I'm not sure what he meant by that, but it indicated to me, it was a little concerning for me to hear that from him, because it seemed to sound like he was thinking this was going to be done quickly and then we need to focus completely on streets. And I just believe very differently.
And I kind of want to segue this conversation into the firefighter contract because obviously firefighters union sided with Guard. He's had their support. Just what is your response? We talked about it again in our previous interview, just about why the firefighters contract couldn't be agreed upon and kind of the history of the firefighters contract.
Well, the contract, the first and only contract that the fire union here has ever had with the city was signed in, I think, late 2016. So it was it was a 5-year contract that ran from 2017 to 2022. It's the only time the fire union has had a contract here in the city. What it does is gives the fire department, fire union members, extra pay for extra things. We as a city have salaries for our fire department. They have benefits. They have all the benefits that all of our other employees have. They also have some unique benefits, specific for their unique role. So the contract is on top of that. The fire union has tried to make a real big deal about how it's not fair that they don't have a contract now. I would suggest it's not fair to any of our other departments to have one department taking a lion's share of money when our other departments have been in such big needs. So, for instance, from 2020 to 2025, our fire department, because of that budget, it went over budget $2.6 million. Over budget. They were getting paid salaries. They were getting benefits. But that contract allowed them to have over 30 different ways that they were paid time and a half. And it culminated, in 2016, our fire department was $0 over budget. It culminated in 2024, our fire department was $900,000 over budget. The next year, our city.
Squeeze shares, my
yeah,
bad.
sorry, no problem. The next year, in 2025, our city administration put some big guardrails in, made some administrative decisions for the city, for the fire department, brought that overspend down to about $350,000, and this year they are $0 over budget currently. So there were some important things that had to be done in terms of the management of the fire department. The fire union is calling those decisions unconstitutional. We on the city council believe they are smart management and absolutely essential for the financial responsibility of the city. And we are absolutely encouraging our city manager to continue the way that he's been dealing with that issue.
I don't mean to put you on the spot because it's kind of hard just.
Oh, that's what
right
this is all about.
Well, for my next question right off the bat, like what would have to happen for a contract with you being mayor to be signed? What would have to be in that contract for you to feel comfortable? Is that even a possibility in general?
Well, could have signed a contract 3 years ago. I could sign one today, but the fire union wants a continuation of their old contract. For the most part, those are the terms that they want. The city, in the past 3 years, there have been some concessions made on some smaller things. But again, they received $2.7 million over a several-year time span that other departments didn't get. And this was also at a time when our police department had, again, 22 openings in their ranks. So there's just, for us to reach an agreement, I think the fire union is dug in at this point. They have made it clear they have a candidate in this race that they think will bring them the contract that they want. It's become, unfortunately, a campaign issue. Politics have probably always been involved, but they're really ramped up now. And the fire union is not just endorsing my opponent, they are giving his campaign thousands of dollars. They are also running their own campaign with their own money and their own signs and digital billboards and things like that outside of my opponent's campaign, because they really believe that he is the candidate that will get them what they want. He's now saying, well, I haven't made any promises. I just want to listen. We have been listening, the city has been listening to the fire union for 3 years. They unfortunately don't like what they're having to listen to, and that is our concerns about financial management. So some major concessions will have to happen on the fire union side for the city to sign a contract. We're still in those negotiations. We're still meeting, not every week. Quite frankly, like I said, I think believe they have a candidate in my opponent who will get them what they want.
And I want this to be your chance to respond, because one of Guard's biggest rebuttals, at least in my interview with him and also on social media, is that he hasn't made any promises. And then he says that you've said that he has made promises. So I just want to clear the air. Do you believe he's made promises? And if so, what promises has he made, and where have you heard it from? Or, yeah.
Well, we've heard that from the fire union. I take them at their word. I have been asking for over a month, well, what exactly has he promised? And that's when the language became, oh, no, I'm just listening. So I don't know. That's a question for Robbie Guard. He now is, though, clearly saying, oh, no promises. It's hard to imagine that anyone believes that. Unions typically don't pump thousands of dollars into political campaigns if they don't believe there's a return on that investment. So I guess everyone just has to think about that for themselves. The union has now changed their language. They are saying, oh, no, we just want to be listened to. Well, that's not what they were saying a month ago. So.
And I think our viewers here, $2.6 million over budget, they can understand where you're coming from. But just to make it crystal clear in your eyes, as mayor, if you were to sign that contract the firefighters were trying to get signed, what would happen to the city financially?
We would go way over budget again in the fire department. And that is money that cannot be used for public works. That is money that cannot be used for the police department. The police department has some specific goals that they want to see happen in the next few years to aid in better law enforcement. That won't be able to happen. And quite frankly, the biggest fear across all departments is that we will become stagnant again in keeping pace, keeping a competitive salary base for our departments. That happened many years ago. In 2022, again, with all of these openings, that was the reason. We had not kept pace, especially regionally, with basic salaries for our people. And so it was much easier for all the surrounding departments in other cities and towns around here to hire folks, because they were paying, first-time firefighter or police officer a couple $1,000s more just for a starting salary. So we've gotten to that point now, though, with our salary increases. We're competitive regionally right now, and we can't afford to take our foot off the pedal in that area, or we will again go back to having openings, having big retention problems, and ultimately having worse public safety.
And I guess it was a surprise to me first hearing that they've only had one contract ever.
Right.
I guess my next question would be, how common for a city our size to have a contract with a fire union and stuff of that sort?
Well, that I couldn't tell you. I haven't run the numbers.
Gotcha.
I will tell you, I think the city of Jackson just signed a contract with their firefighters union. Nobody heard anything about it because there probably just wasn't too much that the city and the fire union there disagreed upon.
That's usually how fast negotiations go.
Right. I think this is just very normal common sense stuff.
And you bring up salary increases and filling jobs.
Mm-hmm.
That seemed like one of your main focuses during your first term. Moving into the future, is that going to remain part of your focus, or what would be your main focus going forward? Is it infrastructure? Is it those salaries, or is it something that we haven't heard of yet?
Well, I think it's like I've said and what you just said. It's those two things that I just mentioned, or you just mentioned. Again, if I have seen, so I've been on the city council now for 8 years, and I have seen prior to becoming mayor, what happens when you don't focus on making salaries a high priority in a city budget. We now have been, and there's been a distinct difference in those two approaches. I would say it's been a much more positive outcome for the city. And so, we are also now at a time, I've been trying to help people understand this for the past few months. We're projecting, that our sales tax revenue and the city's operating budget is going to flatten. And so our finance department has worked very, very closely, not just this year, but in the past few years, with all of our departments to really tighten those belts, because we hope to continue to give an increase to all of our employees in the base salaries. But that takes a lot of prioritization, and it takes all of our departments, working pretty hard, really scrounging into their budgets and analyzing, okay, what's a need, what's a want, what is our priority here. I'll just add this too. In our fire department this year, the fire department is getting about $3 million in capital expenditures this year. That's a separate funding mechanism from our salary stuff. But I mentioned that because they're getting a new pumper truck, and there's a big renovation at one of the fire stations that's going to happen. And I mentioned that because, again, for the fire union to say they're not being treated fairly, I really call that into question. But it also highlights just how every year, throughout the year, how the city administration works very closely with every department head or every chief to know what their department's priorities are, and sometimes it takes a couple years to get something budgeted, but that's the process we engage in every year.
Gotcha. We talk about the future. I want to talk about the past one more time.
Sure.
Just what have you learned most about yourself as mayor?
Well, I think my kids would tell you that I was always someone with a pretty strong backbone. At least they griped about that often. And I have found with this union issue and with some other financial issues, when it comes to difficult city decisions, and especially expenses that are coming through the city, that are all, by the way, taxpayer funded in some way, shape, or form, I can get pretty stingy when I need to for the sake of the budget. But I also, I think I have a stronger backbone than perhaps some have assumed. Only because, not to be stubborn or not to be a irritating person, but again, everything the city does, we deal with tax money. And the city council and the mayor's number one job is to provide oversight for our city budget. And so that has become almost a sacred mission for me. I take it very, very seriously. And I think my husband wishes I would treat our household budget the way I treat our city budget sometimes. But when it comes to the city trust in how their taxpayer dollars are spent, that has become a very, very important issue for me, and one that I won't feel that I will compromise on.
Gotcha.
So.
We'll have the full interview with Mayor Stacy Kinder on our website and KFVS News app, as well as the interview Jeff did with Robbie Gard that will also be on our app and website. I want to say thank you so much for your time today, and good luck.
Appreciate it.